In the everyday rush of our lives, we are surrounded by performances. Some are on stages, but the most compelling ones are played out on the street corners and in the shopping plazas we frequent, where the lines between truth and illusion blur. This is a story about the power of a single, second glance tale that reminds us that the most convincing masks are often worn not to hide a person, but to hide and plan. It begins with a simple act of kindness and unravels into a web of deception, where nothing, not even a mother's profound pain, is what it seems. Let us know where you are watching from and what time you found this video. Outside of the Ora Vista Galleria, the air was filled with the aroma of money, which was a combination of freshly made artisan coffee, expensive leather, and a subtle, sweet sense of exclusivity. The fact that Melissa Smith was juggling bags from businesses whose names she hardly knew was but another thread in the complex tapestry that constituted that situation. At that moment, she witnessed her. The lady was a sharp and terrible contrast to the marble that had been polished and the glass that was shining. She seemed to be a statue of hopelessness as she huddled on a bench, even though she was wearing a worn woolen beanie that was pulled low over her forehead. It was not able to conceal the tear tracks that were visible through the grime on her upper cheeks. Her hands were always wrapped over a massive, pregnant belly that strained against her thin, worn coat. Her hands were chapped and rough, and they were always folded over herself. At the bottom of an old bag was a message that simply stated, "Please." The sign was written by hand. "Any and anything for my little one." A distinct and penetrating pain emanated from Melissa's heart, which was an organ that she often had to fortify in order to withstand the city's never-ending demand. "This particular one?" it murmured. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a $5 note. She then put it into the woman's icy, shaking palm, and their eyes met for a split second. The woman's eyes were a shockingly deep ocean blue, and they were completely filled with an agony that seemed to be far more complicated than simple physical suffering. "God bless you," the laddie sighed her voice. Rossby, before toppling over with a cry and gripping her stomach. As a wave of what seemed to be a severe contraction struck her, "God bless you." An hour later, when Melissa was pumping gas at the gas station that was directly across from the shopping center, the vision of those blue eyes continued to haunt her. She was on the verge of getting into her vehicle when she saw a glimmer of motion in the distance. No, it was her, the lady who is pregnant. She was walking, or more accurately, striding, with a purpose that utterly contradicted the weak and straining figure that was sitting on the bench. After making a stealthy check over her shoulder, she vanished into the short service lane that was unmarked and headed behind the main complex of the shopping mall. At the same time, each and every nerve in Melissa's body ignited. It was a mixture of skepticism, worry, and the instincts of a journalist that she had hidden deep inside her brain ever since she was in college. Without giving it a second thought, she walked away from her vehicle and followed. The sound of her shoes on the asphalt was unheard. When you entered the Ora Vista Galleria, you were transported to another world. The loading docks were where the elegance came to a stop. Beyond that point, it was all cold efficiency. The air smelled of diesel and food that had been thrown away, and the dumpsters were overflowing. Melissa leaned herself against the chilly brick wall and peered over a corner to see what was hidden there. As soon as she saw what she saw, she reached for a phone without thinking, her thumb hovering over the record button with her finger. Although the lady was there, the concert had already concluded. An impassioned conversation was taking place between her and a guy who was dressed in a janitor's outfit. Following then, the most astonishing alterations started to take place. A succession of hooks were undone by her by reaching beneath her enormous pregnant belly and pulling them out with a little bit of practice. Taking the complete prosthetic mound, which was a cushion made of silicone and padding and was well built, she removed it from her hands. It seemed as if she were throwing away yesterday as garbage as she nonchalantly threw it into an open dumpster. It was no longer the needy and frightened mother. A slender, angular-looking lady in her late 20s stood in her place, letting out a sigh of relief as she stretched her back from head to toe. The individual presented her with a stack of dollars from his pocket, which was a substantial amount of cash. She counted the bills with the speed and accuracy of a bank teller. It was not a kind of panhandling. This was the conclusion of a shift. The thoughts in Melissa's head were racing. This wasn't simply a con. It was everything but. The level of detail and specificity was excessive. What caused the pregnancy? Why did you choose this specific location? She kept shooting while holding her breath as the janitor pointed toward a part of the wall that seemed to be solid behind the trash. After pressing a concealed switch, a tiny door that was only accessible to staff and was painted to seem like it was a part of the wall opened with a click. The guy followed the lady inside, and the door closed behind them, leaving no indication of their presence. The woman had slipped inside. Not a simple swindle. This was not. This was a door that led to something quite different. Melissa ran back to her vehicle after being driven by a terror that she was unable to identify. Her heart was pounding against her ribs as she ran faster. She chose not to contact the authorities. Not at this time. In its place, she contacted her elder brother, Ben, who had previously worked as an investigative reporter and is now employed in the private security industry. Ben was the only person she trusted with something as strange as this. While she was recounting everything, she took a deep breath and said, "Ben, you are not going to believe this." Her voice also began to shake. He remained quite quiet while he listened. After she had completed her task, he let out a long and deep whistle. He spoke with a solemn tone and said, "Mel, you have to leave that place immediately. Right now, why is that? What exactly is it?" "There is a pregnancy hoax. It's an old one, but it's not for financial gain." "No, not really. Indeed, it is a diversion. It is the ideal one." He described the situation, his words tumbling out in a hurried and anxious pace. "Give it some thought. It is impossible to feel compassion and urgency for a lady who is in the process of laboring. The only thing that people do is look away or try to assist her. No one looks at her twice. It is possible for her to loiter for hours without security even questioning her. In addition to being able to recall the procedures of armored vehicle deliveries, she is able to case every business, take note of every surveillance camera. And the door that you observed, their blind spot is in that area, a point of access for them." Melissa was then confronted with the reality, which was icy and terrible. She had not discovered a con artist who lacked compassion. She was on the watch for a highly sophisticated theft that was about to be carried out on the most upscale shopping center in the city. When she happened onto it by accident, the money that she and other people had given her was not the objective. Rather, it was only a prop that was used to make the act seem more credible. There was more to the woman's scheme than merely stealing extra coins. She was developing a blueprint for a heist that would cost $1 million. And her fictitious unborn kid was the ideal way to ensure that she would not be discovered at any point. At last, Melissa phoned to 911, her voice becoming more solid and clear as she did so. It seemed clear to her what she should say. She had seen not just a fraud, but also the first act of a criminal conduct, and she was in possession of the proof necessary to put a stop to it before it had started.